Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power Man Podcast. My name is Rory Paquette. I am, as always, especially right now, your incredibly grateful host, folks. Numbers are off the charts. Your activity is insane. I received more DMs over the holiday weekend here than I ever have from you guys. Maybe y'all were bored. I don't know, but thank you for sending them in. We've been putting out some great content. You folks have been amazing. If you're not out there doing what you're doing, I don't get to sit here and do what I'm doing. So I'm grateful. Thank you, and thank you. If you haven't reached out to us for some reason, please do. You can find us at Power Man Podcast on Instagram, all over the place besides that, but that's a great place to start. Send us a DM. We'll get back to you. I respond to all of them personally, I promise. If you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, then you know it's time to pay a couple of bills. So let me take a sip of my preferred beverage. Oh my goodness, that is great. Wow, that's good. Folks, you know what we're drinking. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Go check them out, look them up. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. They are absolutely a fantastic company. They do all the right things for all the right reasons. They support veterans, which is incredibly important to us here at Power Man. You folks all know that. And we support them. So go check them out. Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Tell them Power of Man sent you. One more of these so I can keep up with this former, football player across from me. Hold on. Little teaser. Okay. All right. I'm actually interviewing somebody who's bigger than me, which almost never happens. So here we go. Please welcome to the show, everybody. Senior pastor of Capital Baptist Church in Washington, D.C., author of two books, Get Off the Couch, and his most recent, Bod4God, sold 75,000 copies. He knows what he's doing. Listen to him. He's a speaker. He's a pastor. Please welcome Pastor Steve Reynolds to the show. Steve, how you doing?
Great. Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Now, you do have to just tell him real quick where you played and what position you played, because I teased that already. So,
Oh, okay. So I had the privilege of playing at Liberty University, which back in the day, that wasn't a university. It was an extremely small school, and had the privilege of helping to start that football program and develop it. And it's exciting to see where it's going these days. And
beautiful.
so I'm grateful to have gone through college on a full football scholarship. And that's part of my story I'll be telling today.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to stop you any longer. Tell everybody who is Steve Reynolds, who's Pastor Steve, what are you about, and what is your story, sir?
Sure. Well, the most important thing about me is I'm a husband. Okay, next to God, my wife is my top priority and the second best decision I ever made in my life. And God blessed us with three adult children now. They all three are married, and God's blessed us with nine grandchildren. And my family is my inspiration and really what God used to change my life. So basically, I've struggled with weight all my life. Many men and others can relate to childhood obesity, and when I was in first grade, I weighed 103 pounds. Now, to keep that in context, the average kid at that time weighed 52 pounds. So just picture, here I am, 103, and all these other kids are 52. So I literally double the size of the average kid. But did get involved in sports and kind of leveraged my size, particularly for football. And I wasn't the greatest football player in the world, but I got about a half a dozen full scholarship offers to play football. And like I said, I ended up going to Liberty, which is now Liberty University. And so here's what happened. Okay, so I walked off the football field after playing for 4 years, really playing since I was like 8 years old. And I literally said, I am done with exercise. I was sick of it. Okay. And some of you athletes and, military type people, you can kind of relate to that. You kind of, forced exercise for years and years, and then you get your freedom and you say, I'm done with that. And honestly, here's the deal. Okay. I kept that promise for a quarter of a century. Okay. I meant it. I was done with exercise, but I kept eating like a football player. So here I am, under exercising, overeating. I get up to 350 pounds, and I'm a sick man, a very sick man. I've got high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes. I'm digging my grave with a knife and a fork and an ice cream spoon, basically. Okay, and so I come to this crisis point where I'm thinking, you know what, you're going to die if you don't make a change. I really, honestly, I feel like if I didn't make the change, I wouldn't even be here today. And so basically, I'm a pastor, and I actually prayed. I said, God, what should I do? How can I deal with this issue in my life? And I just felt like God said to me, hey, Pastor Steve, well, he doesn't usually call me pastor, but hey, Steve, what do you tell people to do when they got a sin or an addiction or a problem? Well, God, I tell them to look in the Bible. And I just felt like God said to me, hey, follow your own advice, look in the Bible. And I did. And I like to study words in the Bible. I'm almost all the time studying words in the Bible. I just did a sermon series called But God. And I studied every time the word but God, those two words are used together in the Bible. So I said, okay, what word should I study? And I just felt like the word body would be a good place to start, because I'm thinking, wow, there's got to be some truth in here for me in taking care of my body. And so basically, the word bodies in the Bible 179 times. And
Wow.
from that, I crafted what are now the Bod4God 4 keys.
Nice. Okay. The Bod4God. 4 key. 179 times. No kidding.
Yeah,
Body.
yeah. Sometimes if you're familiar with the Bible, sometimes it talks about like the church being the body of Christ, and then sometimes it talks about our future body in heaven. But most of them speak directly to the body I'm in today, and we're all in today. So
Goodness.
it was very, very helpful.
Okay. So you said you came up with the Bod4God. Now that
Yeah.
was just
Well,
based on this exercise that you did trying to,
yeah,
find the
yeah,
word, and then
yeah.
okay, how'd you
So,
develop the program
so,
then? I'm
so the
curious.
background to that is
Yeah.
I did this just for me. Okay.
Okay.
I had no intentions. You see, the truth is, I never heard a pastor in a church or like a professor in college or seminary talk about health or weight loss or whatever. And in my mind, I never imagined I would stand up in front of Capitol Baptist Church and talk about this stuff. So for me, it was a very private thing. And here's the deal, and some of you men can relate to this. For those 25 years, I wasn't like, some people say, well, I guess you tried to lose weight and, and failed or whatever. I didn't try anything. Okay. I literally couldn't care less what anybody thought of me. And to be blunt with you, even what God thought of me. Okay. I just was totally going to live the way I wanted to live in this one particular area of my life. And I would actually make fun of healthy people. I'd go out of my way to joke with them, and that's not good for a pastor. I don't know if you know that to make fun of
No,
people.
that's probably not good.
That's not one of the best qualifications.
Right.
But I would have some good fun, good laughs with people or whatever. They took it well. Okay, they took it well because they know me well. But the bottom line is, I did this extreme makeover. I started practicing the 4 keys. At the point, I lost like 70 pounds, and at 70 pounds, I lost high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. And so the church is saying to me, hey, what are you doing? This is not our pastor. What? Tell us what you're doing.
Right.
And so I call it, I broke the silence. I tell pastors, break the silence. We know gluttony's in the Bible. We know, slothfulness is in the Bible. We all know it's in there. Okay. We just don't talk about it enough, or really most time not at all.
Right.
And so I broke the silence, and I preached on this at my own church. And it's a crazy story. A reporter for the Washington Post heard about my sermon series, and she called me up, and I'll never forget this day. She says, "Hey, actually, I did a postcard mailing. So about 4 or 5 times a year, I'll mail a card to the community about Christmas services or sermon series or whatever." And so I did a Bod4God mailing, and she got the card, and she says, "I'm holding one of your cards in my hand." She says, "Can I come hear these sermons?" And I'll never forget what she said. She said, "It's not every day you hear a pastor," and catch this, particularly a Baptist pastor, talk about weight loss. I said, "You're right. I've never heard one talk about it." Okay. And I'll be what I say is the first time I'm going to hear at church. And so she came and wrote a front page article in the Washington Post. Okay. And it got picked up by the wires paper. It was in like 600-700 newspapers, and the media went crazy. Okay, I was,
Wow.
you know, front page of Chicago Tribune, Washington Post. I was on Fox News. Been on there 3 times. CNN, international news. It was a wild season. Okay, and so I just believe God at that point said, "Hey, listen." Okay, because I'm just an average guy. Okay, I struggle to this day. Okay, I'm not. They're not gonna put me on the cover of GQ magazine anytime soon. Whatever. uh, and I said, I believe God's opened up an opportunity here. This was not anything I planned. This was God's doings, and so that led me to write the first edition of Bod4God. Okay, and so this is a revised and updated edition we're talking about today. And so 75,000 of the book, and now updated and revised it. So
Wow.
to me, it's a miracle story. It's a miracle story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you just sent out a postcard and everything blew up from there. That's not
It
an
was,
accident. You're
and
being
not an
guided,
accident. No,
obviously. You're being
no,
guided.
no, no, because Christians, we're the most overweight people group in America. That's a documented fact.
That's
And
depressing.
yeah, we are. We are. That's the truth. We're the fattest of the fat. Okay, and blunt. Okay, to be open. And I'm one of those struggling people. Okay, and so God just says, hey. If you're struggling, maybe you can help some other strugglers, and so praise God. God's opened up that opportunity, and I continue to be faithful. And I'm so excited about talking to you, the men, and you, and whoever's listening today, your audience. And I
Appreciate it.
love talking to men. Okay, in particular. So yeah,
Well, we certainly are
because
the
they're
ones
they're
who,
the hardest to reach. You guys, you're the hardest to reach. Okay, there's ladies, they just kind of come along. But us men, we're not quite as open. So thank you for being part of this show today, and putting up with this preacher talking to us about weight loss.
I appreciate the humility, but it's pretty fantastic what has happened,
Yeah,
with your
yeah,
movement.
yeah.
I got a couple questions if that's okay, just about the
Yes, yeah,
process. So you put this out. Obviously, you're being led to do this. It makes sense because our job is to build discipleship. It's to spread the word,
sure.
and you can't do that if we're dying early.
Yeah,
So we need
absolutely.
longer lives so we
Yeah,
can
yeah,
do
yeah,
more and
yeah,
better work.
yeah,
So all of it makes sense to be going through, a pastor.
yeah,
Funny that lady had to say that, but
yeah,
the you wrote a book called "Get Off the Couch," and that was
right.
many years earlier. Uh,
Yeah,
I have not had the chance to look into that book, unfortunately, or else I wouldn't
yeah,
have this question. But
yeah.
um, so were you called before that and wrote the
Well,
book? I mean, how do those two play together?
yeah. Well, so Bod4God did come out first, the first edition. Okay,
Oh,
so
I see.
then
Okay.
then my publisher came to me and they said, you know, would you be willing to write a book for men? And I'll never forget what they said about that. They said, most publishers wouldn't even go in this direction because a lot of men don't read, and if they're going to read, they're probably not going to read about health. Okay, and uh, and they said, but if anybody can pull it off, they said Steve Reynolds could pull it off. So I don't know if I pulled it off or not, but I've tried. So I wrote a book for men called "Get Off the Couch." It's written from a perspective of a coach. It's kind of a because it's that because my background is sports and I love sports. It's written literally from a coach to kind of that in your face encouraging type of approach. Get off the couch, because I had to get off the couch. I had to get my body moving, and so it's I love that book, and I love the impact it's had on men. But all the books are at pastorstevereynolds.com, pastorstevereynolds.com. um, I just going to throw that out there, and they're also available on Amazon. To get a hard copy of Get Off the Couch, you have to go to my website, but you can get a digital copy on Amazon. And then Bod4God, you just got to make sure you get the revised and updated edition if you go to Amazon. Okay, but on my website, pastorstevereynolds.com, that's obviously what's there.
Perfect. Okay, great. The process in Bod4God, the process that you followed,
Yes.
how did you come up with like, was it fasting or was it this? And I don't want you to give away the
Yeah.
secret sauce, but
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
did you come up with in the myriad of,
Yeah.
healthcare stuff
So,
and
so,
losing
I,
weight?
yeah. So I basically, started viewing the Bible as the greatest health book in the world. I mean, I don't think we think about, okay, we think about, okay, I need to improve my health. I need to lose some weight. I need to go down to Weight Watchers. Okay, well, I'm not against Weight Watchers. I think they're wonderful. Okay, but I've got the Bible. I've got the Creator's instructions on how to manage the temple, the body. He gave me, right. So the truth is, I mean, first and foremost, I think I should be going to the Bible, and so that's what I did. And so the keys are, and we can unpack these as much as we want, but basically, I use the acrostic diet. Now, to keep in mind, honestly, if I knew the book was going to, if I knew I was going to write a book and it was going to blow up the way it did, I'm not sure I would have chosen that as the acrostic because don't think some short-term cultural diet program. Okay, I'm a simple man. I needed something to help me remember. Okay, so I thought, okay, diet, here we go. D is dedication. That's honoring God with your body. Okay, so for me, what that meant was bringing my belief system and my behavior together. So I believed my body was God's temple. I believe that. And honestly, in pretty much every other area, I practice that. Like, my body's the temple of God. I'm not gonna smoke cigarettes or whatever, or whatever it might be, but not in this area. Okay, I had to dedicate this area of my body to God. I had to say, okay, God, here's my ice cream spoon. Okay, help me, Lord. And then I is inspiration. That's motivating yourself for change. It's hard to change. When you start making healthy changes, your body is not going to say, "Good job, I'm so proud of you. You're doing great." Your body's going to say, "What in the world is going on here?" This is not the man I know. And so your body's going to, at first is going to give you a hard time. So you got to be motivated. So my family that I mentioned earlier is my number one inspiration. Okay, I want, at that point in time, my kids were younger, but I saw the day they'd get married. I saw grandchildren in my future. All that was a long ways off at that time, but I'm living that dream today. Okay, I'm here for my children, my wife, my children, their spouses, and those 9 grandchildren. I'm alive. I'm healthy. You know, I'm able to move. I'm able to spend time with them, do things with them. So that's my inspiration. And then E is managing your habits, and that's eat and exercise. So that's where kind of the rubber hits the road. Okay, managing your habits. Okay, and then the T is for team, and that's building a circle of support. And so in the book, I talk about how to build a support system as an individual, but the book, Bod4God and Get Off the Couch, by the way, are both designed to be book studies to get with a group. Okay, and uh, and so both of them are designed. Honestly, they're not really reading books. Okay, I'm an author. I obviously would love to sell books. Okay, but I'll be honest with you. If you think it's just reading the book, don't waste your money. Okay, it's really a process. Okay, you got to see it as a weekly process. Okay, and apply what you're reading, and really what you're doing is applying the Bible. That's really what it comes down to. And so basically, a way to build circle support is to do the book with other people, and hundreds of churches have and are doing this program as far as group studies and things like that. And so have a team, of people, and get some support from one another. Just get even just a one friend to where to say, hey, let's go through this Bod4God. Let's go through this, get off the couch together, whatever, and just team up. And there's a lot of you are already involved in probably small groups already. And this would be one to suggest, why don't we study this book here? Okay. And I would encourage you to do so.
Good deal. No, interesting. You said that that this came from a study you did on, body in the Bible. You also mentioned that you had some health issues. You mentioned diabetes and some others.
Mm.
Did you have a health incident or anything that sort of jarred
It,
you a
it,
little bit and
it,
made you
it,
start looking for
it was
body?
yeah, it was kind of like a slow burn. It was like, okay, you get it. I was getting sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah,
Okay, and I'm getting it. I'm sitting here going, take this pill and take two more of those. It's getting worse.
right.
And I'm starting to read about what the long term effects are of high blood pressure, cholesterol, and diabetes. Okay, and I'm thinking, wow, things aren't looking too good for me. And obviously, I'm a pastor. Okay, so I see, I see disease, and I see, the results of these things. And I'm thinking, I don't want to go there. I want to, I rather get off the couch. I spent like 2 or 3 pages talking about it. I want to live to be at least 100 years old, and I want to be like Moses. Okay, Moses lived over 100 years, and it said even at the end of his life, he still had his vigor. He even had good eyesight. It says, okay, and I want to live as long. I can't wait to go to heaven. I'm just not in a hurry to get there. Okay, and I got plenty. I'm kind of like in Philippians 1. Paul said, for me to live is Christ, but to die is gain. I get it, but he says, while I'm here, I want to make the most of it, and that's kind of where I'm at. And I just challenge you, men. Think about your legacy and the impact that you can have. And do your best to be here as long as you can. People say, well, God decides when you pass away. Well, I get that. I haven't, honestly, I can't say I've theologically figured it all out. Okay. But it just so happens that if you study the statistics, people that take care of themselves, God lets them live longer. Okay.
Oddly enough, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know how it all works in God's plan, but I do know this: He blesses us when we take care of ourselves. And I know there's extremes. I know you hear about this story. This guy, smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day and chewed tobacco, and he lived to be 250 years old. And this guy, he was all healthy and eating salad and running every day. He died when he was 40 or whatever. Those are extreme illustrations. Okay? The mainstream is you take good care of yourself, you're going to live longer. Okay, that's the statistics.
Nice. Was there a particular eating plan or anything that you followed on this, or
I
did you come up with that?
basically so we're about I'm about so there's three things that make Bod4God unique. Okay, one is biblical. Okay, it's based on the Bible. Okay, pretty much very few pages in the book don't have at least one scripture on them. Okay, number two, it's personal. So I'm about building a custom made plan because I'm big on lifestyle plan, not short term fix lifestyle plan. Thinking I'm going to have a Bod4God lifestyle, and so basically you got to think about, okay, what can I do to start building that lifestyle plan, and that leads to the third thing. It's incremental. So the book talks about small steps to life. So early on in the book, I share over 50 what I call small steps that I took, and little things, okay, and crazy things in a sense. When I had hamburgers, okay, back in the day, I literally ate 3 burgers, okay, and I was full. But to be honest with you, I wasn't like dying full. Okay, I could nail 3 of them, and hey, that was dinner. Thank you.
Right.
Okay,
Could have
and
had four, probably,
and,
right?
and my small step to life, okay, was on the third one. I decided I won't eat the bun on the third one. Okay, so I'm gonna have two all the
Ah,
way, and I'm gonna have, and literally this is how I started. Okay, in every area, and you have 10,000 taste buds, and so you crave what you crave because of you know habit. You train your taste buds. Your taste buds are trained to operate because of your repetition, right. And so for me it's about retraining those taste buds to start craving the good stuff and not the bad stuff. So if you can do an extreme makeover, I'm all for extreme makeovers. Okay, but most people, and I'm, like we run a program in our church. We've taken lots of people through Bod4God in our church. I have a lot of hands-on experience at this, and it just, for a lifestyle plan, it tends to work better than some plan where you endure it, you grin and bear it, you do it, but then as quick as you can, you're back to your old ways. So basically, it's biblical, it's personal, it's incremental, and I encourage people to start with portion control. So you got the quantity of food and the quality of food. Okay, quantity is your portions. Okay, so start working on the portion control, and then I'm all about living food. Okay, food that's made as much like God made it as possible, and that means trying to eat food that's made on a plant, not in a plant, like not processed food.
Right.
I mean, we're probably gonna lose some listeners right now. Okay, but I told McDonald's, I'm not loving you, I'm leaving you. Okay, and I haven't been there for probably 15 years. Okay, and I'm glad. Okay, okay.
Gotcha.
And I just want to live as long as I can. So doesn't mean I don't ever cheat, mess up. Sometimes I do, whatever. But the fast food is very unhealthy. Okay, that's for sure.
Well, McDonald's is not a sponsor, so you don't have to worry about that. We're good. We're all set in that way. Although
Okay,
I think it's probably
I won't miss any more brands.
I think it's probably a staple though of a lot of guys who
I'm
listen.
going to get some of your coffee there. Okay,
Well, I hope so.
I'm going to check it out. I mean it. I'm
I was
serious.
going to say, now coffee's still okay, right?
Yeah, coffee is great. Okay,
All right. All right.
That's debatable. Okay, but honestly, the research I've done, of course, I'm prejudiced. I want it to sound good.
Right. I'm finding the facts I want to find at that point because I'm not giving up my coffee.
Oh, really, I think it's yeah. Too much
That's great.
is too bad. Too much is too bad. Is bad. But again, let's move on.
Yeah, 100%. No, I love that. No, you mentioned before. You mentioned the DIET for the 4 steps there. Are those the 4 biblical keys to sustaining weight loss, or are those a different thing?
Yes.
Those are them.
So just pick. So everybody wants to go to eat. Okay, so people will come up to me. I call them typically the New Year's resolution crowd. Okay, they want to go straight to eat. Like, what do you eat? Okay, how do you exercise? For a lifestyle plan, that doesn't work. Okay, you got to start with dedication. Okay, you got to say, God, I want to honor you with my body. And God, I'm serious. I'm going to dedicate myself to you. And Lord, I've never done this, or maybe you have done it or whatever. And but it's and honestly, it's a daily and an hour. For me, it's an hourly commitment I have to work on. Okay, the Bible talks about the sin that easily comes on you. Okay, and I believe all Christians struggle with sin. Okay, but I do believe most of us, if not all of us, have like 1 or 2 that are extra hard. Okay, and for me, it's still overeating and under exercise. Okay, so lean into God. I like to say, I ask God to be my personal trainer. I said, God, I dedicate myself to you. I need you to be my personal trainer. Okay, and then you got to have motivation. If you go out here and start trying to change your eating and don't have the right motivation, you're gonna fail in 24 hours. Okay, I mean, you got to have a big. I forget who said it, but if your why is big enough, any what is possible. If your why is big enough, any what is possible. And you got to have a clear why. Okay, why do I want to make this change? Okay,
Yeah.
and it's got to be strong enough and big enough that when you're trying to work through the change, you can get through it. And then you come to the eat and exercise. Okay, and exercise is moving your body. Okay, so it can mean going to a gym. It can mean not going to a gym. It can mean, there's hundreds of ways, if not thousands of ways to move your body and that's exercise. All right. So try to find something you reasonably enjoy. Okay. If you like to walk, you like to play tennis, you like to play basketball, you like to lift weights or whatever, and try to do some strength training and also the cardio stuff. If you can do both, that's ideal.
Sure.
And then get a team. You need a good doctor on your team. God uses doctors. Sorry, a guy in the Bible named Luke. Okay, he was a doctor, and check this out. If you look at the New Testament, the 27 books of the New Testament, the first thing to think is, well, Paul the apostle wrote most of that. Okay, well, he did write the most books of any one person. Okay, but if you put Luke and Acts together, Luke and Acts, those two Bible books, Luke wrote both of those, and there's more content in those two books than even what Paul wrote. I mean, just think about a doctor wrote more of the New Testament. God used the doctor to give us the Bible, and for me, back when I was 350 pounds, I literally only went to the doctor. In fact, I was very blunt with the doctor. He was about the doctor I had at the time. He was about the size of my leg or whatever. Literally, he's a little guy, and I would literally say, "Listen, I'm not exaggerating when I say this. Okay, I'm not necessarily proud of it, but men might be able to relate to this." He would come in, I can hear him outside going room to room to room, whatever, and he'd come in my room, and I would say in a kind way, I'd say, "Listen, you're busy. I'm busy. Okay, you got all these people here want to see you. I don't want to see you. Okay, okay. I'm here because you got that little pad back in the day when you had a little pad. You
Yeah.
can write my prescriptions, and that's why I'm here. Go ahead and write it out, and I'll leave." Okay. And we would chuckle, but he knew I was sick. He said, "No, no, no, we're going to talk. Yeah, I'm going to tell you again, you're fat." Okay. Whatever. He wouldn't let me out the door or whatever. But after that, after I started changing, I'll never forget one day, I came in there like with 10 questions I wanted to ask that same doctor. And he finally said, "I got to go, man. You're taking up way too much time." I mean, I wanted to pick his brain and get any information I could. I had to get the doctor on my team. But I just want to emphasize again, sitting down with other people and going through Bod4God. And you're sitting there with a bunch of people. They have similar challenges, desires. And you see verses in the Bible you've never seen, but even more, you see verses you've seen but never thought about them in the context of your health. That's the big eye opener about Bod4God. So I can't say it enough. Grab a couple guys and say, "Let's go through Bod4God. Let's go through Get Off the Couch. Let's do this together."
The way that you describe it, you mentioned it's incremental. And so it sounds like it's a completely different program for every single person because you have to
That's
tailor
right.
it to you. Am I reading that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, just think about it. Like for eating, you need carbs, carbohydrates, healthy fats, and protein. All of us need that. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm not a nutritionist, by the way, or a doctor. Okay. But
Gotcha.
I've literally read hundreds of books, again, on this. So that's not exaggeration. Okay. Um, and so basically, okay, I mean, you don't have to, if you don't like broccoli, who cares? Don't eat broccoli. Okay, it's okay. But you can get, the same vitamins and minerals out of something else or whatever. The point is, but when you look at your plate, don't think, okay, there's chicken and mashed potatoes and corn. You need to look at that plate and say, you need to learn, okay, that's a protein there. Okay. That's a carb there or whatever. I need some healthy fat here. Maybe I need to eat a few almonds or whatever, and things like that. And again, you don't have to run if you don't want to run. Okay. Honestly, walking's almost running. The truth is, running, as long as you get your heartbeat up when you're walking, or like walking a good pace, running is not even all that much better for you. Okay, as long as you get your heart going. Okay. The point I'm trying to make is, one size fits all does not work. Okay, in the end,
Right.
like people they get on, they call 1-800-STUPID or whatever. Send me this box here, okay? And this box arrives and says, "Okay, here's, you got to drink the 2 healthy shakes here. So drink a shake for breakfast and a shake for lunch, and then have this meal at nighttime or whatever." And you might do that for a little while, okay? But but trust me, okay, financially, you probably can't keep doing it. And number two, you don't want to keep doing it. Okay? So can it work? It can work. Most of those things, you lose a few pounds, because they're mainly starvation. And for me, they were starvation.
Gotcha.
So the point is just become a student of health and wellness, and learn about health and wellness, learn about food, exercise, and managing your body, and figure out small steps to life. I also have another brand new thing is I have an online course now. So for
Right.
years, people have asked me to do an online course, and I just did. I just released it. Okay, and so that just came out. And again, you can go to the website pastorstevereynolds.com, pastorstevereynolds.com, and you'll see the online course there as well. And people can do that too.
Tell me about the course. It walks you
So
through? What does it do?
basically, it's two ways. Again, I once again say do it with someone else, okay? Because you can watch the videos together. But if not, you can do it as an individual, okay? Basically you do a chapter of the book, and then you watch a video, usually about 20 minutes long, okay? And you just repeat that for 12 weeks, okay? You just go through the front. The book is 12 weeks. Okay. So 12 weeks, and then obviously you can keep doing that forever if you want to. Okay. I mean, it's yours to use. So the point is, it's just a matter of, bringing those two together, as well. And I'll go ahead and mention, maybe I'm overloading people here. I mean, you can join our church, our Capital Baptist Church in Annandale, Virginia, 3 times a year. We do the Losing and Live weight loss competition. Basically, it's going through Bod4God and get off the couch. We have a 3-level system, and people can join us from anywhere in the world. Okay, so when COVID was horrible, obviously, but one of the benefits that came for us was we did pivot and we started going online. So we have it on site and online, so people can. There's a lot of, maybe I'm overwhelming you, I don't know. Okay, but I have a lot of options here to help you. Okay, we want to serve you any way we can.
Yeah, 100%. No, I love that you have all these different options for people to get involved. I think that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah.
And the course sounds like, I mean, if you're having trouble finding somebody to do it
Sure,
with, then the course can kind of help you
absolutely.
go along
Yeah,
with you.
absolutely. Like I say, I
Great.
mean, literally for years, people have asked me to do this, and I just got to. So basically, I with COVID, and some of you men can relate to this, and ladies too. Just my parents needed care, and so my brother and I made a decision to as long as we could. We eventually had to put them in a home, a place, but for 5 years we took care of them, and so I had to let something go, and I kind of set my author a full-time pastor. So I set my author hat aside a little bit, but basically where I'm at now is I'm coming out full blow. I'm all the way again. Okay, updated the book, online course. I'm charged. Let's go. Let's roll. Yeah. So
Awesome. No, that's great. Okay. Goodness. So, I mean, you've unpacked a lot. I love the fact that you're doing this, first of all. I have another question because, even the reporter said it. You don't hear pastors talking about this stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and your pastor talks about every part of your life. I mean, whether it's your marriage or, your job. I mean, you
yeah.
talk to your pastor about everything, but I've never heard, anybody in your
No.
position talking about health. Why do you suppose that is?
Well, I mean, so number one, us pastors are struggling. I actually wrote a book for pastors too, called The Healthy Renegade Pastor. All this is
Okay.
on the website, pastorstevereynolds.com.
Okay.
So us pastors, 76% of us are overweight. So it's kind of hard to talk about things you're not doing well. Okay. So that number two, people aren't asking for it. Like people are saying to me, I'm having marriage problems. Would you preach on this, or would you offer some classes on marriage or whatever? Okay. Nobody's asking me to help them with this. Okay. Number three, people are thinking, okay, like if somebody's struggling with pornography and I preach on pornography, nobody knows who's really dealing with pornography. Okay. like nobody's going, okay, I
Right.
bet you're on pornography or whatever. No. But if you get up there and start talking about obesity, everybody starts looking around the room like what. But the truth is, they don't do that. Right. So this is all made up stuff. Okay. So I tell pastors, listen, what you eat in private, you wear in public. They can see you're struggling. Just go ahead and say, you know what? I am struggling. And you know what? I need some help. And this is what the Bible says. And I preach the Bible. And I'm going to preach on this today, knowing I'm not the perfect example of this, but it is God's perfect word. And we're going to, so I say, break the silence. Just get it out there. Okay. Get it out there. And then the truth is, I'm not bragging. I've spoken publicly to, many thousands of people. Okay. I've spoken in lots of conferences, churches, or whatever. And to my knowledge, I've never heard anybody saying they were offended by what I did. And there's two reasons. One is it's in the Bible. Okay. Capital Baptist Church I pastor, we're used to talking about the Bible. Okay? And if we talk about something in the Bible, people just don't get offended. They say, you're right. That's in the Bible right there. And then secondly, you just do it with humility. Okay. Now, be humble about it. None of us, I don't have any reason not to be humble. Okay. I was living in this sin for 25 years. Okay. And I'm still, like I said, I'm not perfect today. But even if you are perfect, okay, there are some rocking pastors out there, you still just humbly say, I want to present the Bible to you or whatever. And and to be honest with you, the people enjoy it. It's fun. It's literally fun. Okay. To do together. It's a blast. So I think, to answer your question, pastors are struggling. Nobody's really prompting pastors to speak on it. And then they have this fear, like if I get up and talk about, being overweight, everybody's going to look over at, Sister Sally or whatever, No, that's not what happens. Okay. It really, I'm not saying it couldn't happen at all, but that's not how it goes down. That's a lie. Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know anybody.
Pastors are the key. If we win the hearts of the pastors, we can. My goal is when I die for us not to be the most overweight people group. I would love to accomplish that in my life. But, still got a long ways to go. Okay.
Sure. I love that you just said that. That's exactly where I was going, was that it seems like, if ever there was a natural position to lead from, it would be, I'm your pastor. You're looking to me to lead.
Yes,
I'm leading this congregation.
Yep.
So for a pastor to step into that leadership and say, I'm going to lead in the spot where we are all the most ashamed, and that is with our bodies.
Yeah. Amen.
Here we go. And I'm not perfect, but I'm
Amen.
I'm going to go do this.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Wow. If you could get that going.
Well, a lot of pastors, sadly, a lot of pastors think if they admit their weaknesses, they lose respect for the people. But it's just the opposite. That's one of the biggest lies ever told. When a pastor gets up and says, I'm struggling, people's appreciation and respect goes high up. Okay.
100%.
Because they can relate to that. They can say, hey, that's good. Thank you for sharing that. And it makes me comfortable, to know my pastor's also working on some things too,
For sure.
Yeah.
Last I checked, only God's perfect. So
amen. Amen. Yes.
That seems like a huge opportunity for you.
Yes, it does.
What are you doing with, if you don't mind me asking? I know it's a little off topic of the book, but what are you doing with the pastor movement? You said you wrote a book for it.
Like I said, another pastor, a friend of mine, Nelson Searcy, he and I wrote this Healthy Renegade Pastor together, and again, that's on the website. But the point is, that opened up opportunities to do some. We did some Healthy Renegade Pastor. He has a large pastors following called Renegade Pastors Network, and so we did a lot of training in that. And then I just randomly get asked to speak at conferences, pastors conferences, and so I to take advantage of that, and just every opportunity I can. And I have pastors call and talk to me personally about, hey, what can I, because they call me in privacy or whatever. So that honestly, pastors and then men are my That's my hot spot. That's what because they're the hardest. I like to go where the hard places are. And try to, I say I got to win them one at a time. They're not going to come in droves.
For sure.
So I'm trying to win them one at a time. So as you know, leading men is like herding cats. So they don't follow real clear.
No, no, not at all. We're we're our own worst enemy most of the time. I wonder what you would say to men in this instance. I know that what you're saying about getting them in. This is such a big issue for men that are part of my listenership because we're husbands, we're fathers.
Yes, amen.
Part of what we're doing, we almost take pride in our decline because we view it as sacrifice.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go do all this for me because I have to do for my wife, for my children, and so on. But I think there is a line where it becomes, less sacrifice, more of an excuse that we kind of fall
Hmm.
into.
Sure.
And even though we wear that like a badge of honor, and we go, yeah, I don't have time to work out because I'm working for my family. What do you say to men to get them to shift that perspective and say, hey,
Yeah.
you got to take care of yourself too, without
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
feeling like I'm being selfish.
Sure. Well, I mean, so for me, it's like either spend time or invest time. Okay. So yeah, you have to spend a lot of time in life, but you also need to be investing your time. And so the way I look at it, like in Bod4God, there's 12 Bod4God thoughts. Okay. And one of the thoughts is basically it's better to live and exercise an hour a day. Okay, which you don't have to go that long, but the point is an hour a day than to be dead 24 hours a day. Okay, so it's kind of blunt. Okay, but it's
Ah,
better. So if I do invest that time, I mean, more than likely, how much longer am I going to be there? And I'll be more effective. I mean, when you're not taking care of yourself, you are sick and tired, and you don't have the energy, and you're puffing and puffing, and you're just not getting as much done because everything you do. I like to say that your health is the lid on your life. Your health is the lid on your life. So if you want to lift your lid, you got to lift your health. And if you'll take care of yourself, you'll be better at what you do. You'll get it done more efficient and be a better husband, a better father, better grandfather, better in your career, you know, and can do it for longer, do it for longer. And when you're not doing well physically, it takes a lot of effort to do whatever you do. Okay, and
yeah,
so if you take care of yourself, you can be more efficient, and and provide a better example, along the. I mean, that's one of the best gifts you could ever give your family is a good example in this area.
right. No, for sure. I've talked to a lot of men about this type of thing. I've battled weight too, on and
Yeah,
off, and I'm
amen.
not unlike just about everybody else.
Me
So,
too. Yeah,
yeah, but you lost 130 pounds doing this.
yeah,
That, I mean, just that number is so
yeah,
impressive.
yeah.
How long did that take you?
Well, when you first start out, okay, so basically when you first start out, if you get serious, if you weigh 340, 350 pounds like I did, I mean, you can lose 2, 3, 4 pounds a week for a while, okay,
Right.
but then it's going to slow down. It's going to be the best weight loss is about 1 to 2 pounds a week, okay, and so it took me about 18 months to 2 years, because I fluctuated some, I wasn't like perfect or whatever. Again, most of this I was doing, nobody even knew I was doing it. Okay? I mean, it wasn't until 70 pounds that I even went public with it. So I was fluctuating, but the point is, don't just focus on the scale. Okay, don't that is important, and you should measure that, but it's not the only measurement. Okay, you got to look at your over, and get off the couch. I have an appendix called Know Your Numbers. And I talk about, men are big. We know how many home runs they hit and what their seasons total was. And we know, who shot the most 3 points or whatever. And those are numbers, okay? But know your numbers on your health. Know your BMI. Know your blood pressure, know your cholesterol. Go see a doctor, okay? Go ahead and say, I'd like to have every test you can give me, okay? It's better just to face it and know what's going on than put your head in the sand and act like nothing. Whatever you sow, you reap. And if you carry around 350 pounds, like I was, you're gonna. The Bible says you sow to your flesh. That's what I was doing. Overeating, underexercising. That's my flesh. You'll reap corruption. And I corrupted my body. But if you sow the spirit, you'll reap life. Okay. And so the point is, it's just better to start working on. You sow the right seed so you can have the right harvest. And you may or may not get rid of these diseases. There's no guarantee, but you'll still be healthier. Okay, you'll see, because basically diabetes, some of it's hereditary, and some of it is lifestyle. So in my case, it was lifestyle. I mean, I was able to. I mean, medically, they won't. Medically, you don't say you got rid of it, because in their mind you still have it, but it's like not there or whatever. I forget what word they use, but the point is, I mean, I was able to quit taking the medication. That's for sure. I took a big. I don't know how many pills, like at least a dozen pills a day, and so yeah. But the scale is important, but look at all these other numbers too, and focus on your health and your wellness. And habits. Good habits.
Was the diabetes the biggest, thing that kind of fell off in terms of how it impacted your life, this weight loss, or was there something else that was, really big too, in addition to the diabetes?
Well, they say high blood pressure is a silent killer. Okay,
Oh,
so
okay, yeah, I had that too.
it's very serious. So high blood pressure, and cholesterol. There's debates about cholesterol. Okay, not everybody even agrees with. Should you take statins or whatever, okay? But I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving any advice on all that stuff. But the point is, I mean, high blood pressure, diabetes, I don't think there's any debate on that stuff,
Right.
and things like that. So I just think people have to, it costs you time, it costs you money, you have to buy all that stuff. Your health care, costs can rise. I mean, it's just, I mean, we're going to see a lot happen. This is not political, but I'm just telling you this stuff RFK is talking about. I mean, like I for our anniversary, I'd never been to Europe before in my life, and so we went to Italy, and I was, and I mean, I'm over there. We went to this chef. He had a cooking thing in his house, okay, and we got there, and then he told that there's like 40 something things they don't allow in Europe, that are here, and these are some of the things that I think RFK is working on or whatever. So, so the point is, we need to educate ourselves and know, read labels. Okay, I talk about this. Like, okay, you ought to know what you're putting in your body. I mean, just take, like look at the top 3 ingredients. If you can't pronounce them, that's bad right there. If you can't, I remember one time I went to a store. Okay, I won't say the brand, and I look up there and I'm looking at the drinks, and it says lemonade, like real big lemonade. Okay, and then in the small print it says contains no lemons. what does it contain? It's lemonade with, so it's just,
Artificial everything, yeah.
yeah, artificial everything, yeah. I just thought that I laughed. I thought that was so funny. Like lemonade contains no lemon.
Wow.
So yeah. So you just gotta know what you're putting in your body. Yeah. Monitor it, read about it. Yeah.
I love it. If you don't mind, just stepping back a little bit in your story, I'm always curious whenever I'm talking to men of God and men who have been completely called like you have, um, and obviously you've been drawn to where you are today. But this is just kind of my own curiosity, if you don't mind me asking, and you absolutely can tell me, hey, this isn't something I'm talking about on the show today, brother. But I'm always curious if sort of like when your calling happened for you, and how
Okay.
that got you into this leadership
Sure.
position.
Yeah. So so I appreciate you saying that, because I'm really big on calling out the called. So maybe God's even speaking to some people here today, because we're not raising up enough pastors for the future. So,
Right.
and part of it is, that's a whole hour talk in itself. But one of the reasons we're not calling out the call. We're not even bringing up that possibility. So basically, and when I went to Liberty, which I don't know if it's a Christian school, I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not. I went there mainly. I'll try to give the short answer, not take too long. But I had these like half a dozen small schools recruiting me to play football. And the truth is, I spiritually at the time would have rather gone to one of these other secular schools. But my parents said, Steve, would you at least give this a shot in a year? And if you decide at the end of the year it's not for you, you want to go somewhere else, that's fine. Would you do that? And I just felt like I wanted to honor my parents, and I did that. Okay, I didn't go there on fire for Jesus. Okay, but God began to work in my life. I went there thinking I was going to go into coaching or business, but literally by the second semester, my first year of college, God was prodding me about the possibility of full-time church ministry, and so I pursued that. And first, I thought I was actually going to be going to be a missionary and go overseas. But after a while, God showed me He wanted me to plant a church in the United States. And He eventually led me to Washington, D.C. to start a brand new church. And so I started that church in 1982, and nobody else wants me, so I've been there ever since. So still, I'll leave here and go straight to the church. So.
That's great. No,
Yeah,
I appreciate
so,
that. I'm
yeah. So we got to, if God's nudging you, basically the big thing to realize about a calling is desire. So 1 Timothy 3 talks about if you desire the office of a bishop, you desire a good work. And, I tell people, if God's called you, you literally can't do anything else to be happy. Okay. It's not just, oh, that looks interesting. You got to do it. Okay. You just got to do it. Maybe God's talking to some of you. And the first thing, a call is a call to preparation. Okay. And so if God's leading you, you need to start getting yourself prepared. And in the Bible, when God called somebody, he called, even Jesus, before he did his public ministry, went away, got away for 40 days. And preparation is so important. So I'd love to see somebody move forward with the calling, because of this talk today. That'd be awesome.
that'd be wonderful. My youngest son has been experiencing that. He's in sales
Great.
and loves it, but he's really being called to. There's an associate pastor, program where he's at, and he's really
Wonderful.
thinking he wants to do that. So we've been
Excellent.
having a lot of those conversations. So I
Excellent.
appreciate you going off
Yeah.
book a little with me on that
Yep.
one.
Yep. I love
Just
it. Yeah.
something I want to make sure I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
and I love that you said, calling out the called. It's
Yeah.
if you're
Pastors,
feeling
any
this.
pastors listening, I have to talk about it every week, but
Oh,
well, I actually grew up in a church where every service there was an altar call, and every service it was come forward if you want to be saved, come forward if you want to join the church, and come forward if you're called to full-time church ministry. Okay, every
wow.
single service. Okay, and there were a lot of churches back in the day like that, and maybe we don't need to be doing that. Maybe that was too much. I don't know. Okay, but we got to talk about it sometime. Bring it up. And
Right.
and discuss it, because people don't know what to do or how to do it. So
Yeah, for sure. In our movement, I'm always talking to men about, how our main job is to protect, provide for, and lead.
mhm.
And protect, they almost always get, no problem. Provide for, I think everybody has a general understanding for, but it's the lead part where we all seem to just be very, very, very human, very fallible. And it's
Mhm.
also where we seem to have the least amount of desire to like step up and lead.
Right.
One of the things that's incredibly impressive about you, and I got to say this while we're on the air, is in all of these different aspects, whether it's talking, calling out the call, talking to new pastors, writing books, spreading the word, or talking about, your own health issues and your own body transformation, you don't have any kind of problem stepping up and leading. And I just have to give you credit for that, sir, because that's
Thank you. Thank
incredibly
you.
impressive, and we need a lot
Thank you.
more of that.
Thank you.
We really do.
Amen.
Um, we've talked
Well,
about a lot.
I think if men will just, I think if we'll just get our um, mindset on servant leadership. Okay,
Mm,
it makes a huge difference. Just if we just see, if you see yourself as a servant and you get treated like a servant, then you're okay because you're a servant.
it all works out.
And yeah, I mean, and that's what we need to do. Jesus was a servant, and he said, "If you want to be great, be a servant, and just just don't think you got to be this dictator or this perfect example. You just do your best to serve, and try to serve where you serve well. And
Right.
like in marriage, I mean, I believe marriage. Just I think you need to look at strengths and weaknesses, and try to complement each other. And if you're good at this, you do that. And I'm good at that. I'll do that. We'll work together on some things. Just don't think you got to fit in this perfect. Everybody does the same thing type situation. So, and that can work. But just who can I serve? Who can I help? Who can I support? Just get that mindset, and don't think again. Well, I got to be this perfect example of authority and all that stuff. No, 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 you don't.
Yeah.
None of us do. Yeah.
Gotcha. Listen, we've talked about a lot and we've uncovered a
Yes.
lot of different things today. And I appreciate you going with me on these little sides, but,
Yeah. I love it.
let me, and maybe you already did it, but let me go ahead and give you the last minute or two. I want to just say, hey, is there anything I didn't ask you about? Is there anything that maybe we talked about and you want to just, bring home a
Yeah.
little harder
Yeah. I
or
want to
a leave
bring home.
behind? So,
Yeah. I want to bring home legacy. Okay. I mean, I
okay.
mentioned it early on,
Yeah.
but guys, okay, you are living your life, and you're gonna have and leave a legacy. Okay. And it's that old thing that you got your birth date and your death date, but the dash in the middle is the most important thing. And I just want to challenge you to live well, to serve well, to leave a lasting legacy to the people in your life, and just realize that, and to do that and to do it well, you gotta be around, okay, and you gotta take care of yourself, and you're worth it. Taking time for yourself is, again, it's not spending time, it's investing time. It's gonna pay off, okay, in the end. And if you just see it that way, you're not doing something for your wife while you're trying to do 20 minutes of exercise. You're trying to be a better husband for your wife, and you will be a better husband for your wife. And so just think about your legacy. I mean, I don't want my legacy to be, well, dad was 350 pounds. He had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, and he died when he was whatever age you want to pick, younger age or whatever. So no, I don't want that. Okay, I don't want that. I don't want that legacy. Okay, I want to know that I've done my best and lived as long as I could, and love Jesus. Okay, love the Lord. That's important. That's important. So
Yeah. Love that. Thank you
yeah,
for that. That's a
yeah,
great way to wrap us up.
yeah,
That
yeah,
really is.
yeah.
Folks, you've heard it right here today. Husband, father, grandfather, pastor, author, speaker, um, Pastor Steve Reynolds. Steve, thank you so much for being here today,
Thank you
for
so
sharing
much.
everything you have, and for
Yeah.
leading the way for men all over the place. It's been great having you on, sir.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it,
Thank
and
you.
I hope people will take it. Anything I get off my materials, I invest back into materials. So the church, that's my main calling and my main job. So I just really want to encourage you to take advantage of some of these resources. Okay, and again, go to my website, PastorSteveReynolds.com. I actually got 5 books there, including the books we mentioned today, and that online course is there too. And there's some free stuff there. There's a 7-day quick start program there that you can get, and that's free. Okay, I have what I call the Monday morning health tip, where every Monday morning I'll drop an email in your inbox, just really short, but just a reminder. Hey, you got a new week ahead here. Take care of yourself. All this stuff is available for free on the website. But check it out, PastorSteveReynolds.com.
Awesome. And all that'll be in the show notes, and all the links will be in the show notes. So for folks, um, Steve, again, thank you for
Thank
everything, man.
you.
Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Folks, that's been another episode of the Power Man Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a lot out of it. Check out the website, check out the links, check out the book. It's all going to be in the show notes for you. Folks, the reason that we do this, the reason we bring powerful men like this on here with powerful messages is because all we want to do is help you in your journey to become a better protector, a better provider, and a better leader for your family. We want you to be able to become better men, better husbands, and better fathers tomorrow than you are today. And you heard Pastor Steve say it just a minute ago. The reason we do this is because you're worth it. You have value. And at some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.